Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says the Trudeau government must do more to protect Canadians from extortion, which he says is running out of control. Prime Minister Trudeau says Bell's impending 4,800 layoffs is garbage news, especially after the company received $40 million tax dollars. And this is Super Bowl weekend. We hear from retailers who say thanks to their romance, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce merchandise is flying off the shelves.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says crime is running out of control in Canada. He says what's particularly disturbing is the fact that extortion has risen more than 200% under the Liberal NDP coalition government. He says he has a plan to eliminate extortion by those who try to intimidate business owners for money.
We will establish mandatory prison sentences of 3 years for any criminal convicted of extortion. We will bring mandatory 5-year prison sentences for any criminal convicted of extortion who is acting on behalf of gangs or organized crime. Not only does this mean that criminals who carry out these crimes will go to prison, but it also means that prosecutors and cops will have another tool to go after the ringleaders of these organized criminals. We will restore mandatory 4-year prison sentences for extortion with a firearm. This is the penalty that Trudeau and the NDP took away. We will make arson an aggravating factor in the commission of extortion. And we will reverse catch and release. We will bring in jail, not bail.
A Calgary Conservative MP says more needs to be done when it comes to addressing domestic violence here in our country. Calgary Signal Hill MP Ron Liepert says violent offenders really need to stay behind bars.
On January 16th, a young mother dropping off 2 of her 3 children at an elementary school in my riding was fatally stabbed by her estranged husband, and it was witnessed by the children. The killer, who was found dead a few hours later, had multiple breaches of restraining orders, had been released on bail several times on charges including sexual assault, and had a warrant out for his arrest on the morning of this tragic event. These children are now without parents and are emotionally scarred for life as a result of what they have witnessed. Now, we hear time and again government members standing up in this place decrying gender-based violence, yet Statistics Canada reports that instances of domestic violence have gone up every year since 2015, since this government took over. It's time this Liberal government stopped talking and started to act on domestic violence. Victims need protection, not more hollow statements by Liberal MPs, and abusers need jail, not bail.
Ontario has become the 5th province to sign a health care deal with Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the $3.1 billion deal will help the province increase access to primary care, reduce wait times for surgeries, allow the hiring of more healthcare workers, and improve services for Indigenous people.
Last year, the federal government announced a major investment of $200 billion to strengthen our healthcare system. As part of this agreement, we said we'd work on tailored agreements with each province and territory to help address their unique challenges and needs. We've already reached agreements with British Columbia, PEI, Alberta, and Nova Scotia, and today we're immensely pleased to be here to announce an agreement with the province of Ontario.
Canada's Heritage Minister is not happy. Pascal St-Onge is accusing Bell Media of breaking its promise to invest in local news after the company was granted more than $40 million in regulatory relief because of changes to licensing fees. That's the same amount the company says its news division is losing each and every year. It says it will slash 4,800 jobs even though its parent company is still making money.
I know how hard it is. The uncertainty and the few months ahead are going to be very, very difficult. I also want to say that I'm extremely disappointed in Bell Canada's decision for many reasons. One of them is because in the past decade, when acquisition were allowed for those big companies to acquire television station or radio station, it came with the promise that they would deliver on news content. And today, they are backing from that promise, even though they were allowed to acquire all this privilege, Canadian privilege. Also, the CRTC, because they are facing difficulties, alleviated them of the burden of $40 million per year to help them keep their promise of producing news. And again, they're backing away from that. And at a time where there are regulation changes that are coming at the CRTC, at the time where the cultural industry is having a hard time, that the news sector is having a hard time, we need everybody to hold strong in the next few months until the CRTC finally give a final regulation with the new Broadcasting Act.
The Care from the Heart Radiothon here in Lethbridge was another huge success this year. Hundreds of folks and many organizations helped raise more than $500,000 for the Chinook Regional Hospital Foundation. Crystal Elliott, CEO of the foundation, says thanks to so much generosity, this is one of the best years ever.
The Radiothon was absolutely amazing. We're actually still receiving online donations that just coming in. So our new total as of right now is $571,634. It is absolutely outstanding. This is the largest Care for the Heart that we've ever had, and it's a little scary going into next year trying to look at this target and the goal we reached. But you know, I think what people need to understand is that every donation matters. Every single donation that came in yesterday contributed to us reaching that success.
Elliott says the money raised will go towards purchasing new equipment that is needed within the hospital. She says they're always taking donations, but to keep your eyes open for the upcoming truck raffle. If you've ever had a dream of owning your own restaurant, now may be the opportunity. A local barbecue favorite, Hickory Street, is up for sale. Co-owner and pitmaster of the eatery, Devin Bone, says she has an exciting new venture ahead of her. While she didn't get into details of why she's selling, she says that there are many fond memories of running this very popular restaurant.
It's been an amazing experience. We've met some of the best humans on the planet here. It's been a very interesting journey through COVID, we opening so close to COVID, but it has been a journey that I would love to repeat all over again. We have met some of our best friends now. We're customers that are now best friends that are the first people that we call about things. No, they don't know the new secret yet either. A new person would probably breathe some fresh life into the place. But I think they'd also be able to keep the consistency of Hickory Street. So my plan is to work one-on-one with whomever it is that takes this over, work one-on-one for a good month, train them in everything to make sure that the experience for them, for the customers, and everybody is still seamless and consistent.
Bone says the only thing she's willing to share about her new adventure is that it's going to be barbecue themed. Hickory Street started back in 2019 operating as a food truck. They added a brick and mortar location in Sterling in 2020 and later moved to their current location in downtown Lethbridge. The town of Coaldale has unveiled the official logo for the Southern Alberta Summer Games, which are coming up July 3rd through the 6th. The 2024 Games will feature both individual and team sporting events with close to 2,000 athletes participating. The man who designed the new logo is Mark McIntosh. He's also the Southern Alberta Summer Games coordinator. He explains where he got his inspiration behind the cool new design.
When I started designing the logo, I knew I wanted to do the gemstone. That's the centerpiece. And when you come into Coaldale, you see the gem at the welcome sign. It's one of the first things you see. And our logo is Gem of the West, which is also the name of our local museum. So I wanted to pay some tribute to that. In the gemstone, I knew I wanted to do a showcase of the different sports that could be at the games and have been at the games for the past 50 some odd years. The owl was particularly important to me. I have a lot of good memories of the birds of prey. I love animals. I think the great horned owl is a great centerpiece for the birds of prey and just in Alberta in general as the provincial bird. With the owl and the gemstone, I wanted to portray the ideas of both gemstone being valuable, and I want it to be a valuable memory for all of the athletes that come to participate. And then the owl as a symbol of pride. So not just town pride, but I want all athletes to come just feeling that sense of pride.
As for the 2024 Southern Alberta Summer Games, they'll mark the first time that Coaldale and Lethbridge County will co-host the Games since 1997. It'll also be the 51st anniversary of the Games. Helping people through their grief can really assist during the healing process. Now that's according to Joanne Penner-Heron, co-leader of Grief Share at Evangelical Free Church here in Lethbridge. Penner-Heron says a good first step is to help people get out of their cycle of grief.
In terms of getting unstuck, I think to help people move forward with a purpose, and Grief Share is very good for that. We can address issues that might be holding us back. And, you know, there's a lovely, lovely saying that I really have used a lot in my own life, and that is that memories are not meant to hold us hostage. So we are in the same circle of self-muddling, but they're meant to transform us. And so you move forward with purpose in this whole process of transformation.
Make sure you catch the entire interview with some of the team of Grief Share at E-Free Church here in Lethbridge, and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up later in our broadcast. South of the border, former U.S. President Donald Trump won Nevada's Republican presidential caucuses on Thursday after he was the only major candidate to compete. Trump won his third straight state as he tries to secure his party's nomination.
I just want to really thank the great people of Nevada.
Trump talked several times about the importance of Nevada in the general election. He said that if he wins Nevada, then it would be pretty difficult for Biden to win the presidency.
This has been a tremendous state, and you know, if we win the state, we easily win the election in November. We have to.
With Trump winning the Nevada Republican caucus, it puts him that much closer to securing the Republican nomination for president.
Big win for him, his third state after Iowa and New Hampshire last month. That means he gets the delegates out of Nevada. There was a primary on Tuesday, but that was symbolic with no delegates. And so Trump is that much closer to securing the Republican nomination for president. So his next stop will be South Carolina for their primary later this month.
U.S. President Joe Biden welcomed news that the finding of a special counsel report said he would not face criminal charges in his handling of classified documents.
I was pleased to see they reached the conclusion I believed and knew all along they would, that there are no charges should be brought in this case. As many of you know, this was an exhaustive investigation going back literally more than 40 years. 40 years when I became a United States Senator when I was a kid. I was a kid, 29 years old. Special counsel acknowledged I cooperated completely. I did not throw up any roadblocks. I sought no delays. In fact, I was so determined to give special counsel what they needed, I went forward with a 5-hour in-person interview over the 2 days of October the 8th and 9th last year, even though Israel had just been attacked by Hamas on the 7th. I was in the middle of handling an international crisis, but I was especially pleased to see the special counsel make clear the stark differences between this case and Donald Trump.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken left the Middle East on Thursday with public divisions between the United States and Israel at perhaps their worst level since Israel's war against the terrorist group Hamas began back on October the 7th.
This is his 5th time in the region since war broke out between Israel and Hamas back in October. And once again, he appears to be leaving empty-handed. Blinken is working on efforts with other partners to forge a ceasefire that would pause the fighting between Israel and Hamas. And on the surface, at least, things did not seem to go well. Hamas presented a number of demands that Blinken has dismissed as non-starters. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also gave the plan a cool reception. He has dismissed Hamas's demands as delusional. He is also vowing to press ahead with Israel's offensive until it achieves what he calls total victory. Blinken says he is not discouraged. He says this is all part of the negotiating process, and it's part of what he calls a back and forth between these two enemies. He remains optimistic that there is space to reach an agreement, and those efforts are expected to continue in the coming days and the coming weeks.
Hundreds of farmers with their tractors gathered on the outskirts of Rome, Italy, to protest the lack of government attention and measures to support farming communities across the country.
Noi crediamo che un popolo senza la propria agricoltura non sia un popolo, come dire, libero, perché dipendere da paesi lontani sulla propria alimentazione penso che sia da un punto di vista salutare sbagliato, da un punto di vista economico sbagliato, da un punto di vista ecologico sbagliato, perché per ritrasportare i punti da una parte all'altra del mondo.
Well, this is Super Bowl weekend as Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs take on Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers. Now, a huge storyline this season for the Chiefs has been the ongoing romance of Kansas City offensive tight end Travis Kelce and pop superstar Taylor Swift. A pop culture expert and instructor at Lethbridge College says the whole Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce storyline is actually good news for the NFL.
I think the NFL itself is happy with it because I think they'll take any fans they can get, and their brand is so huge. I think they can absorb any audience. Whether they can or not, I don't know, but they just think we can take anybody. And the Super Bowl is kind of an example of that. Super Bowl is kind of like an unofficial national holiday, even in Canada, I think it is, but definitely in the United States. And so I think the Super Bowl thinks, yeah, we'll take everybody.
And you know, it appears as though both Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce merchandise is flying off store shelves as we head up to Sunday's Super Bowl.
This is our 6th run at an AFC championship, but having the Travis and Taylor story kind of involved has kind of put it on a global level that, you know, Kansas City's never even experienced. So this end of the year has been kind of unlike anything we've ever had, and it's been really fun to experience.
The ring that she wore sold out within like 30 minutes, and then we immediately put it on pre-order, and I think we're close to 3,000 being spoken for. So between online orders and wholesale orders all over the country, there's a lot. So yeah, we're very excited.
Hopefully the big game will be just as exciting on Sunday. I've been excited about the mild temperatures we've been experiencing here in Lethbridge with all of the snow melting, and not a bad weekend is shaping up either. Full weather details are on deck. We experienced a few more flurries today in parts of southwestern Alberta with temperatures just below the freezing mark. Tonight, expect some of the clouds to clear out with a low near -16 in Lethbridge. Tomorrow, it should be mainly sunny with a high expected near 0. Let the meltdown continue. More clouds roll in on Sunday, but the mercury should climb up to around 3 degrees. Snow mixed with rain developing on Monday with a high near +1. More snow in the forecast on Tuesday with the temperature dropping down to about -5. A high pressure system moves in on Wednesday, clearing out the clouds, and we should see a high near -6 degrees. Warming up slightly under a mainly clear sky on Thursday to -4. Now the average high for this time of year is +1 with an average low of -11. The record high was 16 degrees set back in 1987, and the record low was a frigid -42 in 1939. The sun rose at 7:52 and set at 5:40. Let's have a look at how the forecasted temperatures looking across the country on Saturday. Expect showers with a high near 7 degrees in Victoria, rain and 7 degrees as well for Vancouver. There's a slight chance of flurries developing and a high of 0 in Edmonton tomorrow. Increasing clouds with a high of +2 for Calgary. Expect a mixture of sun and cloud and a high of -6 degrees in Regina on Saturday. Lots of sunshine and a high of -8 for Saskatoon. A good chance of snow developing with a cloudy sky and a high of -5 in Winnipeg. In the central part of the country, expect rain and 10 degrees in Toronto, overcast and 6 degrees in Ottawa, mainly cloudy and 8 is on tap for Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, expect showers and 8 degrees for Fredericton, mainly cloudy and 5 degrees for Halifax, a good chance of showers and 6 for Charlottetown, and in St. John's, it'll be mainly cloudy with a high near -2 degrees on Saturday. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is trash-talking BCE Inc.'s widespread layoffs, calling the cuts a garbage decision. Trudeau says he's furious over Bell Media's decision to end multiple television newscasts and that the corporation should really know better. The outlet made program cuts Thursday after its parent company announced job reductions and the sale of 45 of its 103 regional radio stations.
We've seen over the past years journalistic outlets, radio stations, small community newspapers, bought up by corporate entities who then lay off journalists, change the offering, the quality of offering to people, And then when people don't watch as much or engage as much, the corporate entity says, oh, see, they're not profitable anymore. We're going to sell them off. This is the erosion, not just of journalism, of quality local journalism, at a time where people need it more than ever, given misinformation and disinformation, but it's eroding our very democracy.
Chief Executive Mirko Bibic says Bell Media's advertising revenues declined by $140 million in 2023 compared with the year before. He says the company's news division is seeing more than $40 million in annual operating losses. Canada's unemployment rate dropped slightly to 5.7% last month as the economy added around 37,000 jobs. The report from Stats Canada marks the first decline in the unemployment rate since December of 2022. Employment rose across several sectors in January, led by wholesale and retail trade, along with finance, insurance, real estate, rental, and leasing. Accommodation and food services, meanwhile, saw the largest declines. Workers' wages rose 5.3% last month compared with a year ago. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 89 points on the day to finish at 21,009. The Dow was down 54 points to 38,671. The S&P 500 was up 28 on the day to 5,026, and the Nasdaq was up 196 points to 15,990. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 32 cents to $76.54 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 6 cents to $1.86. Gold was down $10.26 on the day to finish at $2,024.26 US an ounce, and silver was up 3 cents to $22.61 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.55 per bushel, barley's at $6.23, canola's at $13, and corn is at $7.52 per bushel. Live cattle were up 85 cents to $184.63. Feeder cattle March contract was up 30 cents to $247.15. And lean hogs were up 38 cents to $73.68. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to $74.30 US. Recapping one of our top stories, former U.S. President Donald Trump won Nevada's Republican presidential caucuses on Thursday after he was the only major candidate to compete. Trump won his third straight state as he tries to secure his party's nomination. The U.S. federal election is slated for November 5th of this year. One of the 10 commandments is not to bear false witness against thy neighbor. Author Mitch Albom wrote a book on lies and their damaging effects called The Little Liar. He'll share details of how lies can get out of control, even little white lies. He'll share the details in just a moment. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of our local stories, visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. For people with special needs and disabilities, Ability Skate invites you to a dedicated sensory-friendly public skating program designed especially for you. Taking place Sundays from 1:45 to 3:15 p.m. and Tuesdays from 1 to 2 p.m. at the Civic Ice Arena, you're welcome to put on your skates and glide on the ice in a dimly lit, no-music environment. For details, visit leisure.lethbridge.ca. Discover how Lethbridge has played an important military role in the preservation of world peace and security by visiting the Lethbridge Military Museum at the Vimy Ridge Armory at the Lethbridge Airport. The museum is open to the public each Wednesday from noon to 4 p.m. Special arrangements for other days and times can be made by calling 403-328-6196. Admission is free, but donations are gratefully accepted. For more information, visit lethbridgemilitarymuseum.org. Lethbridge Sport Council's Indoor Roving Gyms program takes place Tuesdays at Emmanuel Lutheran Church from 6 to 7 p.m. and Thursdays at the Service Sports Center from 10 to 11 a.m. This program is for kids ages 5 and under and their caregivers. Come and enjoy an hour of fun and get active. Pre-registration is required and space is limited. For details and to register, visit lethbridgesportcouncil.ca/roving gyms. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.
We live in a world where truth is often questioned and distorted, and we are too often unsure of what actually is true. Well, today's guest has written a novel that deals with some of these very issues. We are joined today by Mitch Albom, who is the New York Times bestselling author and who has sold over 40 million copies of his book. His latest book is entitled The Little Liar, available at mitchalbom.com. Great to have you with us again, Mitch. Wonderful to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Of course. So first off, maybe give us a little snapshot of what your book is about and maybe share a little bit about what inspired you to write it.
Sure. Well, it's a book that deals with truth, lying, hope, and forgiveness. And it's set during World War II. It follows the story of a little boy named Nico, who's 11 years old. And to that point in his life, has never told a lie in his life before. And when the Nazis invade his little town, they find out about him and they decide to use him as a weapon, and they steal him from his family, and they say, we'll let you go back to your family. All you have to do is stand on these train tracks every day for the next couple of weeks and tell people that they're getting on trains, going to new homes and new jobs. Everything's going to be fine because they're going to be confused. And after you do that, you can go back to your family. So thinking that he's telling the truth because he's never not told the truth and doesn't realize what he's doing, he does this every day. And the people who know him to be honest trust him, and so they get in these trains. And only on the very last day does he see his own family is being shoved inside one of these boxcars. And he finds out that the trains are actually going to the concentration camps and to Auschwitz. And that's when he learns that. And to make matters worse, the Nazi who tricked him doesn't let him get on the train. And so the train takes off with everybody that he knows and loves, and he's left behind. And the story follows him and three other characters from that point for the next 40 years over the ramifications of that single lie and how that affected him and his brother and the girl that they loved and the Nazi characters. So it's a parable about truth and lying that covers a great span of time.
Wow, that sounds intense. So this young boy, Nico, he now, I guess, has to deal with the anguish of knowing that he's inadvertently caused this unspeakable tragedy. And I guess he responds by becoming a liar himself in your book. So do you think that response is fairly common to humanity as a whole? Do we tend to sort of oversteer to try to somehow make up for our mistakes?
Yeah, I think if you look at your own lying, and that's one thing I want people who read The Little Liar to sort of come out of saying, well, what's the biggest lie I ever told? What were the ramifications of that lie? And what would I do to be forgiven for that lie? Because that's pretty much what Nico has to do. And I think if you were honest, when we start telling lies, we never stop. You know, we sort of tell one and we say, well, I've told that one, in order to keep that going, I need to kind of, I'll just do one more. I'll just tell a little, I'll just exaggerate a little bit more. And we tend to sort of compensate, or we're ashamed of something as he was. And so we can't, instead of admitting it, we cover it up, and the cover up becomes more and more complicated as we get older. So what Nico went through, of course, he was tricked. So, he didn't cause the thing. He just was an inadvertent participant. But what he goes through, I think a lot of us go through. And the other character is his brother, who goes to the concentration camp and blames his younger brother and says he's the reason he was in with the Nazis, and tries to spend the rest of his life trying to find him to take revenge. And this little girl who loved him and thinks the opposite, thinks, no, he couldn't have known what he was doing. I need to find him so I can forgive him. And she spends the rest of her life trying to find him. He's changed his name, he's changed his identity, he's moved around, but she tries to find him to forgive him. So all these little tentacles that come out of a lie, and the different reactions that we have to it are part of what I try to study and bring forth in The Little Liar.
That's interesting. You have truth sort of almost as the narrator of the book. And speaking of truth, this is not based on a true story necessarily, is it?
Well, it isn't, and it is. I mean, obviously, all the stuff that takes place during the Holocaust and the years that follow is actually, based on real events, but the characters are fictional. But this was something actually that the Nazis did. They would get Jewish people to stand on the platforms and lie to their own people under threat of death. They would hold their families and say, if you don't do this, we're going to kill your family. And so sadly, there's a slice of truth running through the whole story. But you mentioned the narrator is the voice of truth. And that really did really kind of make the book, to be honest. And the book's been out, a number of weeks now. And a lot of people have said to me that that was the most interesting part of it, because the book begins essentially with a voice saying, you can trust the story you're about to hear. You can trust it because I'm the only thing in this world you can trust. I'm the shadow you can't outrun. I'm the mirror that holds your final reflection. I am truth. And this is a story about a boy who tried to break me. And I remember when I wrote that page, I remember when I wrote that page, I said, yeah, I'd like to read that book. You know, if I'd at least turn the page and see where he was going with that. So it gave me the opportunity to speak to the whole idea of lying and truth as if truth was having its heart broken, you know, by all the times that humans lie and abuse it.
Oh, that's fascinating. And Mitch, it's also very interesting that the release of your book coincides with this global rise of anti-Semitism that we're seeing following especially this horrible terrorist attack on Israel that took place back in October. So, and of course, we also just observed a Holocaust Remembrance Day
Right.
just recently. So something that people are even denying happened. So any thoughts on why so many seemingly otherwise rational people can vent so much hatred towards Jews and other minorities?
Well, you know, I wish I had the answer as to why, because then maybe we could solve it. I can only tell you that it's not new, that anti-Semitism has been around since the dawn of time. It's the oldest form of hatred in the world, and it rears its head whenever people get angry or want to blame another people for their woes or for their issues. And that's certainly what happened in Germany, you know, under Adolf Hitler, where he decided to say, if we just get rid of the Jews, then we'll be good, you know, and he rallied an entire country around that idea that somehow the Jews were the cause of their misery, which of course wasn't even slightly true. And you see a lot of that stuff going on today. And, you know, unfortunately, it was a Nazi who said this very prophetic sentence: a lie told once is easily seen as a lie, but a lie told 1,000 times becomes the truth. And this is what we're dealing with today, you know, where there are a lot of lies that are put out there. Now, I just read a study, which is shocking, that 1 in 5 Americans under the age of, I think, 30, think the Holocaust is a myth. 1 in 5 people think the Holocaust is a myth. Now, 0% of people over 65 thought it was a myth. So what does that tell you? That as time passes, people start to forget, or they buy in new forms of history. The people who were over 65 were there. They were alive at the time. If anybody you should be listening to, it's them. They were there. They're the ones who say, no, it wasn't a myth. And yet you have young people coming along buying a lie that's been put out 1,000 times, that, oh, it's exaggerated and whatever. And they start to take it as the truth. It's a very, very dangerous thing.
Yeah. And of course, today we're seeing people saying things like, well, that's my truth. What's your truth? Right? It's becoming kind of distorted, like you said. So why is objective truth so difficult to nail down?
Because it makes people uncomfortable, because they may have to admit that they were wrong about something, or they may have to admit that their guy or their candidate or their person or their take maybe isn't right. It's easier to just keep turning the dial until you find someone who says, no, you're right, they're wrong. Okay, that's my truth. You know, I almost laugh at that phrase, you know, my truth. What people mean is my story. And the world is full of individual stories. And that's true. And we should respect everybody's story. But that doesn't change what's empirically true in the world. You can't say, well, my truth is that I was abused, and so therefore I get to abuse other people. No, you don't. That's still bad. If you do that, it's bad. And just because you went through it and your truth was you suffered doesn't mean that you get to abuse other people, and it's not causing suffering for them because it's your truth, you know. And you can see how that phrase can get just twisted around to justify almost anything. So we have to understand that there's one truth, and that's what the voice of truth in The Little Liar kind of does. It says, no, you can't treat me like it's a buffet. You take a slice of this and a slice of that. I won't take that. I'll leave that. I'll put that. That's not what truth is. Truth is a meal that you have to eat. And sometimes you may find it distasteful, but it is what it is. There's only one truth.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, your book addresses the power of lies. And some people might ask, are little lies okay? You know, some people might see it that way. Your thoughts?
Well, yes. I mean, does this dress make me look fat? is certainly something that we have learned that there's a good answer for, and then there's a good answer
Don't
for.
answer that.
Yeah, and or there's no answer for.
Right.
And I think most people know the difference between a small lie, prevarication, and one that does harm. And the other antidote to that, because we all do lie, so we can't pretend that we don't live in a world that doesn't lie. But the antidote to it is forgiveness. And this book is as much about forgiveness as it is about lying. I always say that ever since Tuesdays with Morrie, which is the book people probably know me the most for, all of my books have a piece of Tuesdays with Morrie in them, whether I mean to or not. And certainly The Little Liar does, because Morrie and I talked a lot about forgiveness. He was dying from Lou Gehrig's disease, and I visited with him every Tuesday until the end of his life. And we did like this last class together, and what's really important in life when you know you're going to die. And one of the things that he said to me was, you need to forgive everybody, everything, no matter how much they hurt you or whatever. If you care about them, or if you love them, forgive everybody, everything, and forgive yourself. And this was something that plays very large in The Little Liar, because Nico spends the rest of his life from 11 years old all the way until he's in his 60s trying to be forgiven for what he did and trying to make up for it. And other people try to find him to forgive him. So that's a huge theme as well.
Yeah, obviously you were just talking about that theme of forgiveness that's kind of throughout your book there. Is this the only hope maybe that we have to overcome the violent hatred that is so common in our world right now?
Well, yes. I mean, and I think you actually maybe inadvertently said the word that is, to me, the antidote to all of it, and that's hope. I have actually been teased in my career or criticized about being too hopeful in my books. And in fact, there was a critic who wrote a whole slamming review of one of my books, and at the end he dismissed me, just said, "Oh, he's just the king of hope," meaning it as an insult. And I kind of thought, well, that's not so bad.
Right.
I wouldn't mind that. And I think that we have to have hope no matter how dire the circumstance. And I created a scene based on some stories that I was told by people who survived the Holocaust in The Little Liar, during the Holocaust in a concentration camp, where the grandfather of Nico's grandfather of the family, every night gathers his family members together and whispering so the guards can't hear them. He forces them to say one good thing that happened to them during the day that they are grateful to God for. And you think, well, what could you possibly say in a concentration camp that you could be grateful for? And one says, well, today I snuck an extra spoonful of soup. Or one says, my rotted tooth fell out. Or one says, the guard who always beats me was on today so I didn't get beaten. One says, I saw a bird. And what is it inside human beings that despite the worst of circumstances, we still search for hope? We still want to find some reason to believe that tomorrow will be better than today. That thing that's inside of us, to me, is divine. That's divine. And that is what carries us through the next day. It's not something that animals have. Animals don't measure. You can't measure an animal's optimism. Animals just survive. But we not only survive, but we look for the next day to be better. And that is how you deal with not only the issue of lying today or conflict, but really all the problems that face mankind. Is that we have to hope that tomorrow will be smarter and tomorrow will be better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations on your book there. I'm just going to switch gears for a second here. Mitch, you run an orphanage in Haiti. So how are things going there for you and the kids?
Well, that is a switch. I have run an orphanage in Haiti since January. Well, I've been there since January of 2010. So for 14 years now. I'm there every month. We have about 60, 65 kids in any given time. We don't adopt any of our kids out. When they come to us, then they just stay with us, and through food and love and nourishment and faith, we educate them. They go to school 4 hours in English and 4 hours in French every day. And so far, every one of our kids has graduated through our school and has come to the States on a scholarship to study at universities. One of our kids is in medical school even. And then all of them return when they're done to the orphanage and work there for 2 years to give back to the place that raised them, and then go into Haiti and hopefully make their country a better place. Our orphanage is thriving in terms of the kids are fantastic and amazing. The country is in terrible, terrible shape. It's an extremely dangerous place, second poorest country in the world, poorest in this side of the world, and you can't go anywhere because of the gangs. Our kids have not left the orphanage in over 3 years. 3 years, they can't go outside. And we have to take bodyguards and bulletproof vehicles just to get from the airport to the orphanage when we come in. It's terrible. And the fact that no one is helping, and the UN tried to put together some kind of force, it just fell apart, we just found out. And so there's not even going to be that help. And it's 700 miles off of our shores. And, you know, it's an hour and a half ride from Miami to get there in a plane. And we're not doing anything about it. We're not helping them. And it's criminal in my mind. And, you know, I do what I can, you know, with the kids, but the country needs a lot more help.
Yeah, very, very challenging situation over there. And like, that's a whole other topic on its own that we can go on and on about.
I'm happy to talk about it. I love talking about our kids.
I'm sure you do. We'll have to book you back again because we're out of time here. But thank you so much for being with us today. And also thank you so much for the work that you do in Haiti. You're amazing.
Well, that's a privilege. I don't need to be thanked for that. It's an honor to be able to work with those kids. And I thank you for taking time to talk to me about my work and my book. And I hope I get a chance to see you again sometime.
Me as well. Thank you so much for being with us. Mitch Albom is the author of The Little Liar, available at mitchalbom.com. At some point in our life, we will experience the loss of a loved one and we'll grieve that loss, but we might not know exactly how to handle the ups and downs that come with this. So what are some healthy ways to go through the grieving process? Well, joining me to share some advice on this is Siobhan Parr, who is a pastor of church life at Lethbridge Evangelical Free Church, and Joanne Penner-Heron. Together they lead the Grief Share Loss and Support Group. Ladies, welcome to Bridge City News. Great to have you on this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Okay, so first off, can you maybe give us a snapshot of what your Grief Share Support Group is about and what people would experience if they dropped into one of your gatherings?
Sure. So Grief Share is a group faith-based program, and it's offered to anyone who is grieving the loss of a loved one through death. It is a 13-week program with 13 sessions. And when you come to this group, you come to look for support. We offer care, encouragement, lots of listening. Videos are offered. First of all, there are 3 parts to each week. There's a video produced by Church Initiative, which has excellent counselors, pastors, and people speaking of their experiences during grief. And then there's a discussion time about the video. So we all share together our own emotional pain and things we are working through. And then following that, each participant goes home with a workbook and they reflect on questions each week and come back and we carry on to another area of grief. So it's a sharing of our loss, and it's faith-based, which gives us a very strong faith support to build our healing upon.
Right, 13 weeks. Okay, that's a long
Yes.
process there. All right.
It is fairly.
Okay. How often do you have these sessions, I guess?
Well, we have them as needed, I would like to suggest. So there are other churches in town who run the Grief Share program as well, and we try not to overlap and offer them at the same time. So we are in conversation with them, and if you're offering it one semester, then we won't. So it's a little unpredictable to just say actual times and schedules. But if you go on the website, the griefshare.org website, you can see what's offered in Lethbridge each semester, and people can go wherever they like.
Are these 1-hour sessions? You may have mentioned already.
They're 2-hour sessions, at least because there's time for the video and the discussion and joining together as well. There are some options to do groups online. Our current version of that is to do it completely in person. But it's something that we might be looking at in the future as well, just as times change. But
Okay.
the community and fellowship is very important part of it as well. So
Yeah.
we're leaning into the
That
in person.
that really makes sense in building those connections 100%. So now I've heard that grief has several stages that we tend to go through. So can you maybe share those with us?
There's 5 common stages of grief. It's from the Kubler-Ross. Her book came out in the 60s on death and dying.
Psychology, yes.
And it's really set the stage for the different phases. Originally, it was thought that it was maybe a linear progression, is that you go through each one individually, but we understand it more of it's like in waves. Grief comes in waves. So the standard 5 that we're looking at is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But there could be times, you've come to the point of acceptance, but then anger creeps up as well. So it's a process where different things can pop up at different times as well. But those are the traditional ones that we'll be dealing with and understanding and working through as well.
And of course, they do say that people grieve in different ways, and some people are more emotional, some like to be kind of left alone, others maybe need to be around people, right? So I mean, there's no a scenario where everyone goes through this the same way, right?
No, it's very unpredictable and very unique and individual. And we grieve depending on our age, our stage, the extent of our relationships. We deal according to personality, as you just suggested. We can be external grievers, and where our grief very overtly, we can be internal grievers and manage our grief differently. So even in one household, you could have 2 or 3 or 4 people all grieving somewhat differently. And to understand that is really helpful. It's helpful to support each other, and it's helpful to walk through the whole process to health at the end of it all.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've heard also that regret is a common emotion in the grief process. Why would that be?
With regrets, it's not just sadness and grief. Grief brings out many emotions, and some of those might come from the things that you didn't say to the person while they were alive, the things that you wish you would have done if you just had one more moment with them. What would change? Or maybe the actions that led to their death. There could be some regrets around that. If I'd picked up that phone call, if I'd just done this one thing. That's what makes it quite complex and hard to deal with by yourself as well. And this process, it helps to be able to talk about things, to normalize just the amount of intense emotions that people could be feeling.
Oh, 100%.
And helps us learn how to helps us learn how to manage feelings of guilt that can arise from all of these if onlys. If only I had. And then guilt ensues sometimes after that.
Yeah, guilt, regret, and I would imagine
Yes.
loneliness is often an issue that's part of the grieving process as well, right? So
Yeah.
what are maybe some unhealthy methods that people use to deal with their grief? And is there a way that we can help someone who's maybe spiraling downward?
So the part of grief is the loneliness, as you mentioned. You're going to experience a loneliness because it's the loss of someone that you loved in your life, in this grief that we're dealing with. And so a lot of times for spouses as well, there's a definite loss of someone who was there with them, perhaps all the time throughout their lifetime. When it changes to so the loneliness is going to be normal, but then when it becomes unhealthy, we see extreme isolation, cutting yourself off from others and those other connections as well. Sometimes you need to be alone. Sometimes you need to have that time to yourself to be able to cry. But when it becomes withdrawing from the world, that starts to become unhealthy. Other methods then that come in is someone may try and numb the pain that they're feeling through the use of substances to escape some of the things that they're feeling, which you can understand, but it can spiral wrong very quickly. So in those circumstances, we ask that people reach out for help, and if they're not able to reach out themselves, that the friends and family are able to come alongside them and to just spend time with them, to encourage them to get the help, to increase the connections that they have with others, so that the unhealthy methods aren't the primary methods that people turn to.
Right. It's got to be such a balancing act, because at the same time, you should never tell someone who's grieving that they should be over it by now, right?
That's very right. Very right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So with that said, when friends and relatives are maybe grieving, oftentimes we don't know what to say or what to do.
That's right.
So what are some do's and don'ts of how to, kind of talk to somebody who is going through this?
Well, probably the most important thing we can do is to just think before we speak, and listen a lot. A touch, a hug, if that's appropriate and accepted, is really welcome, to let them know we are here, that we are empathetic, but to listen before we speak. And sometimes the only a very neutral but caring thing to say is, I'm just so sorry for your loss, and I have no words. I loved your partner. I loved your person, or I didn't know them very well, but I've heard such good things. I am so sorry. And probably contrasted to that would be a very unhelpful response might be, oh, I know just how you're feeling. I went through this. And while that may have threads of truth, we do not know how somebody else is feeling. So to impose and suggest that we do is not helpful, because nobody really understands our particular pain. And so it's something that it takes some thought. I think we just need to not believe that we have the answers for somebody who's grieving, but we need to learn with them, walk alongside. Another thing that's very helpful is to not pretend we know what they need, and just bring over, the 15th lasagna, which is really tasty, but that's a lot of food possibly. And just say, I'll call you next week and check in and see what you need then. And there are varieties of ways. How would you like me to come and vacuum your home on Friday? Would that be helpful? And instead of presuming that we know what people need. So it's a very empathetic response and a listening response more than anything. Let them talk about their loved one. They need to. They need to talk a lot about their loved one, and we need to listen.
That's really,
so those are some helpful things.
Really good advice there. Thank you for that. Now, what advice might you have for people who don't seem to be able to move on with the new normal in their life, and they seem kind of stuck in constant grief? And there's no real timeline, right? Everybody's different.
That's right.
Yeah. It's different for each person. It really is. It's different for each person, and what a new normal may look like, to go back to discover what that might be. What the person is looking for, they might not know, that we're trying to help them see, is that eventually they might be able to come to a place where the feelings that they're experiencing from the loss are less overwhelming at that time. And that might be the new normal for them.
It may be, but in terms of getting unstuck, I think to help people move forward with a purpose, and Grief Share is very good for that. We can address issues that might be holding us back. And, there's a lovely, lovely saying that I really have used a lot in my own life, and that is that memories are not meant to hold us hostage. So we are in the same circle of self-muddling, but they're meant to transform us. And so you move forward with purpose in this whole process of transformation. So, and then that becomes a new normal that you can greet and embrace and live with. But we need support for that. And Grief Share certainly helps support people in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it helpful for people to maybe write down their thoughts and emotions in a journal?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I would suggest that journaling is integral to this program. And don't let anyone be kind of scared off by that at all if you haven't been writing. But we each receive a participant workbook.
Mhm.
And in that workbook, there is space to write down your own thoughts and come back to the class with what you've written. You don't need to share it with anybody at all, but it helps us to sort through and clarify our emotions. And if we can clarify with a writing process, that can be the most healing thing, and we never really recognize our pain and the circle of chaos till we see it on paper. And we can move through then. It gives us ideas for how to move through that. So journaling is really a key thing, wouldn't you say?
I love it. It gives a way to get all of the emotions out. You don't have to stop your thoughts or regulate. You just put it all onto the page, everything that you're thinking, that you're feeling, that you're going through, and it helps to be able to express that in your own way that you can hold privately as well. You don't need to share that, but it's important that it does come out.
Yeah, exactly. I would imagine it's very therapeutic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very.
Excellent. Well, it looks like we're about out of time here, but I really appreciate you ladies for joining me today and talking about this really hard subject.
Yeah. It is, but it's also, we can hold joy and sorrow in two hands, and we can experience alternately as we move through this journey, less sorrow and more joy, and some days more sorrow and less joy. But if we understand the process of how to allow ourselves to embrace a new way of living and a new normal, then we come through whole on the other side.
Absolutely. Well, Pastor Siobhan and Joanne, thanks so much for joining me
You're
today.
very welcome. You're very welcome.
Pastor Siobhan Parr and Joanne Penner-Heron lead the Grief Share Loss and Support Group at Lethbridge Evangelical Free Church. So great to have them on today. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.